Hi. Over the last few weeks I've been posting some pictures to Instagram of my lawn and the stripes that I've been doing with a do-it-yourself lawn striper that I built. And I've gotten a lot of questions on how I built that lawn striper, so today I thought I'd take a few minutes and show you guys how I put it together. Now, the beauty of this lawn striper, for me anyway, is that I built it entirely with things that I had laying around the house. I only had to buy two little parts from Home Depot, and I'll show you what those are, but you know, the total cost of this striper to me was less than $3 because everything was just junk I had laying around. If you were going to buy everything new from Home Depot, you're probably looking at about $35 to $40, which still is quite a bit cheaper than a lot of the commercial stripers out there that you can buy. And personally, I think it does just as good a job. So here's a closer look at the lawn striper fully assembled. We've got a head off of an old push broom that the handle had broken off of. The red braces are actually the bracket that used to hold the broom handle to the broom. I just took a hammer and straightened them out. They had a bend in them. Then we've got a 3-inch piece of PVC pipe that's filled with sand, a 1-inch angle iron, and two 3-inch L brackets on the back here that mount the angle iron to the roller and actually allow this to spin freely. And I'll take this roller apart and show you how that's assembled. And then the last piece, these red brackets, this part here used to wrap around the broom handle, and I had a piece of tubing that I had cut off of an old hose reel, and I'll show you that in a second. And I just built this little hitch mount off of that hose reel, and it fits in these brackets, and these bolts squeeze it tight, and it's just a friction fitting that holds that steady. So here's the old hose reel that I cut that piece of tubing off of. You can see I cut about 6 inches of the handle off here. It's not terribly thick, so I just used a regular old hacksaw to make the cut. And then what I did is on that 6-inch piece that I cut out of here, I just cut on both sides, just cut laterally, about 1.5 inches back, just a slot in here, and that allowed me, when I pounded it, this part flattened out and it created a top and bottom flange using that cut. And then I just rounded the end off with the angle grinder. So here you can see that tube, and you can see this is where I made the cut, the lateral cut, and when I pounded it, it created this top and bottom flange that fit over the hitch that I put on my mower. All right, so here I've taken the roller part off of the striper, and I'm going to pull this end cap off and show you what the inside looks like. So I've taken the end cap off of my PVC pipe, and what I have here is a 5/16 inch threaded rod that runs all the way through my PVC pipe out the other end. The PVC pipe itself is 24 inches wide, and I've cut the threaded rod 1.5 inches longer, so my threaded rod I actually cut at 27 inches. Then what I did is run the rod all the way through. I don't know if you can see in here, just threaded down a nut, a 5/16 inch nut, down to the level that it fits flat with the inserted end cap. Then to add some stability for the end cap, or some support for the end cap, I just used a 5/16 inch fender washer, put that in. And the reason I did that is because these temporary end caps, I think they cost less than $1 at Home Depot. but they're temporary. They're not meant to be super strong. So the inside of it is, you know, it's a little bit flexible. And I didn't want my, I wanted this all to be very sturdy and screwed together tightly. So I put the fender washer in on top of the nut so that I have something to really crank down on to get this cap to stay on. What I did is I drilled through the center a 5/16 inch hole in that cap, and that just seats down right on top of that washer. Okay. Then, once you get that on, the next part is I put just a regular 5/16 inch flat washer on, and then a 5/16 inch lock washer, then a 5/16 inch nut. And that's what provides kind of the clamping power to keep the end caps on. Clamp that down here. Again, it doesn't need to be super tight, but you want it tight enough that that this end cap isn't gonna pop off. Then the rest of the pieces, I'll show you kind of how it assembles here before I put it back on the roller itself. So what mounts it to the angle iron is I've got these 3-inch angle brackets that I bought at Home Depot a while back for a different shelving project I had, so I had them laying around. They come pre-drilled with holes. All I did is I took one of the holes and drilled it out a little bit bigger so that my axle would fit through. And what I'm using is a 5/16 inch spacer because I don't want this rubbing up against the threads on my rod, because over time that'll wreck the threads, and then if I ever need to take this back apart, I won't be able to get these nuts off. So I wanted something to protect the threads, and I had these 5/16 inch spacers laying around, so I decided to use them. So on top of this nut, just put another 5/16 inch flat washer. Then my spacer goes on top of that. The angle iron, or the L bracket, fits over the top of the spacer. Then another 5/16 inch flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut. And we tighten that down. Now you can see that my L bracket has some room to work here, but it entirely rides on that spacer between these two washers. So the washers keep it, you know, from coming off of that spacer, and the spacer is just protecting the threads on my threaded rod. And then this is the part that mounts to the L bracket, or the angle iron that I have on the broom head. So now the other side of my tubing mounts onto the angle bracket the exact same way. So we're just gonna put that together quick. Turn a little bit. So I've already got my washer, my lock washer, my nut on there. I'm gonna add another flat washer, put my spacer, then it goes through my L bracket, another washer, lock washer, and a nut. Okay. So now we've got both sides with our L brackets on. Okay, so now we're ready to take that L bracket, or the L bracket, and mount it back onto our angle iron. I laid the bracket out over the top where it needed to be and just took a center punch and punched in each of these pre-existing holes onto my angle iron. And I just took a hand drill and drilled 1/4 inch holes in my angle iron in those spots. So then what I can do is take a 1/4 inch bolt, run it through the top, and then on the bottom I'm using a regular flat washer, regular lock washer, and a 1/4 inch nut. And there's 2 of those. Gives a little bit more stability. Same setup, flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Let me give you a little bit closer look on how that fits together. All right, so here's our L bracket coming down from our angle iron. You can see we've got the 2 1/4 inch bolts and nuts here, bolting our L brackets to our angle iron. And then we've got our end cap, the flat washer, lock washer, nut. We've got our 5/16 inch spacer in there, and that's what rides or allows this angle iron, or L bracket rather, to ride on that 5/16 inch threaded rod without wrecking the threads. Okay, so that keeps everything in place, and you can see as I wiggle it back and forth, that L bracket, I've got it in here pretty tight, so there's no wobble room in here at all. It rides very, very securely. So what I did to mount the broom head onto the roller here, used the existing hole on this red piece to drill another hole in my angle iron, used a 1/4 inch bolt, flat washer, lock washer, nut to secure the red piece to my angle iron. Did the same exact thing on the other side. And then to mount the broom handle to these red braces, what I did is I drilled a 1/4 inch hole, 2 of them on each side, and then I just used these threaded screws that I had laying around, and I pre-drilled the broom head. This is just kind of a plastic, so I just drilled a 1/4 inch pre-drill hole in there, and then ran these screws in. Now the hole you'll need, the size of the hole you'll need depends on the size of the screws that you have laying around. Like I said, these are about 1/4 inch, so I just pre-drilled a little bit smaller hole and then run these in so they're snug. You don't want to over tighten them because, like I said, this is just plastic and you don't want to strip it out. But I've got 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and that keeps the broom head straight. It doesn't go side to side, it doesn't go up and down. To connect this whole setup to my mower, I took a little bit different approach than I've seen a lot of other people take. A lot of people will take, just like flat iron, and they'll run it off of their striper, 1 on each side, and they'll mount it to the back of their mower. I decided to go with more of a kind of a hitch and trailer system, and I'll show you why when I put this on the mower. It's just a friction fitting, so if it ever does start to slide, and I've used this system now about probably a good dozen times that I've mowed with it, and it hasn't slid even a fraction of an inch on here. But if it ever does start to slide, then what I would do is I'll just drill a small hole through the bracket, through the pipe, all the way out the bottom, and just run a bolt through it, and that'll keep it mounted tight in place. All right, so let me hook this up to the mower and show you how it all connects. So here we're looking at the back of our mower, and all I did here was I just built myself a little piece of a flat hitch here. Used 2 screws with nuts on the back to hold it to the back of my mower. And what this piece is it's actually just a landscaping spike that I used. I cut it off, you know, about 1.5 inches down, and pounded it flat. You know, it's got this little bend in it. Just pounded it flat, and then ground off the corners with an angle grinder to just kind of round it out. Drilled a 1/4 inch hole through the top of it, and then it just screws on just like that. Tried to get it as centered in the mower as I could. That just fits over my little hitch, and I just take a regular hitch pin and run that through and lock it on, and that's how it hooks to the mower. When I built this piece here, I've got pretty long legs. I'm 6'4", so I really wanted the whole striper unit to be as close to the back side of the mower as I could, because I don't want to step on the roller when I'm just walking. So I cut this pipe at 6 inches, and what that does is it gives it enough room to turn before it hits the wheels over here and on the other side, that I've got a pretty good range of motion on how much this can turn. Because this is all, there's nothing flexible in any of this, the mower can easily go backwards and forwards. And when you're backing up, this just backs up like you'd back up a boat trailer or something like that. Takes a little getting used to, and I'll take it out in the lawn and I'll show you a little bit more about how it works. But it backs up just fine. You're never gonna run it underneath the mower or anything like that. You'd have to bend steel to get that to happen. And even when you jackknife it, the worst that can happen is that the plastic on the push broom hits your wheel. And that doesn't do any damage to the mower. It's not gonna do any damage to the striper. The striper, as you go over your lawn, it can wobble side to side. It can go up at angles. So if you've got a bumpy yard, it's not going to bend anything. It can freely roll over stuff. So that's my lawn striper in a nutshell. Let me take it out in the lawn and push it around and kind of show you guys how it works going backwards and forwards, and let you make a decision for yourself. Now, a couple more quick things that I'll just note about this striper system is, you saw when I was working in the lawn, I can turn corners as tight as I want, and if it goes past the jackknife point, the striper actually just slides across the grass. I've never had it catch on anything. I've never had it snag on the grass and dig a trench in the grass. It slides across the top. And in part, I think that's because of the broom that's on there. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how much the broom is actually helping me with my striping. I do think it helps to kind of erase the wheel marks that your mower makes, but I don't know that it really does a lot. I've thought about taking the broom head off for a while and just striping with just the roller to see what difference it makes, but you know, I really don't know how much it's doing. The other thing is, you'll see when it's hooked to the mower, you can see it right now, I've actually got the broom head, I mounted it on there so it rides about 1/2 inch off of the ground. Originally I had it at the same, the bottom of the broom was at the same as the bottom of the roller, and that pushed really hard in the lawn, but lifting it up that 1/2 inch, it actually allowed it to kind of glide across the top of the grass. And supposedly the whole point of the broom head on here is to actually kind of comb the grass and get it all pointed in the same direction as you're mowing, so that when your roller goes over the top of it, it's actually laying the grass all over in the same direction. Whereas you know, if you don't have the broom on there, supposedly, you know, some grass could kind of roll and lay to the left, some could lay to the right, and some will lay straight forward or backward. This kind of lines it all up so that it lays nicer. I don't know if it really does much for me, but it's on there, and quite honestly, it doesn't push any harder. Now, this is a self-propelled mower, so it does, you know, it does all the work for me. The total weight of this striper unit is 19 pounds, which is, generally speaking, most of the commercial ones are right around 16, 17 pounds that I've seen. So it's a little bit heavier, but the mower handles it no problem. I've never had to really feel like I was pushing extra hard on the mower to get the stripes laid down. Never had anything bend on it, never had anything break on it. Like I said, I've mowed at least a dozen times with this striper system, and I've got a fairly hilly yard. It's about 10,000 square feet, so it's gotten some good use, and I'll show some pictures of my lawn at the end of the video here. And as you can see, I tend to do double fat lawn stripes, which means a lot of the yard I'm going over twice. And you know, so this thing's got some good miles on it. It's held up really well. You know, the PVC does get a little bit scuffed up, but I mean, really, who cares? I don't really care if it's scuffed. It's a tool. It's not supposed to be pretty, but it works really well. And for the price, I don't think you can beat it. So before I go, one other thing I wanted to share is this is kind of version 1 of my lawn striper. This is what I used last year. It's the same basic concept without the broom head, but this is only a 2-inch piece of PVC pipe. And to put some perspective on it, this weighs about 8 pounds, packed with sand, same exact sand I used in the other striper. But the difference between a 2-inch piece of pipe and a 3-inch piece of pipe is the difference between 8 to 9 pounds and, you know, 19 to 20 pounds that I'm running at right now. The other thing that I did differently is with this striper, I had kind of the more traditional end caps for PVC laying around, and I used those. And the one thing I did notice is that, and this is being very nitpicky, but because there's a little ridge there, you'd actually see whiter stripes in the yard where these end caps were rolling than you would where the main body of the roller was. So that's why I decided to go with the inset kind of temporary, they're called temporary end caps on that striper, because it gets rid of this ridge. And honestly, I don't see tire marks in my stripes with that. I don't see marks from any end caps. I just get nice, even stripes all the way across. So thanks for watching this. Follow me on Instagram. I will put the link in the description to my Instagram account, and check out some of my other videos here on YouTube. I don't do a lot of instructional videos, but I do some fun videos of things that I'm doing in my yard and around the house. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.